What's up and welcome to part 2 of this World Cup preview with Rabona TV. I'm Adrian. Yo. And if you missed the first part where we went through groups A through D, then don't worry, there will be a link to it in the description. If you saw that already, then welcome back. Now without further ado, let's get into Group E. And hey, if you find yourself enjoying this video at any time and want more World Cup content before, during, and after the tournament, then be sure to hit subscribe. Brazil, Serbia, Costa Rica, and Switzerland will all be contending in a group that, besides Brazil, is pretty even in my opinion. In fact, let's start with Brazil. For me, they're looking like one of the early contenders for the World Cup. Definitely in the top 3 as far as chances of winning the whole tournament stand. They will definitely be dying to make things right after the 7-1 humiliation in 2014 on home soil. Of course, they have qualified for the World Cup the most, with this being their 21st tournament. And qualification for this tournament started pretty poorly, as Brazil found themselves in 6th. However, with the sacking of Dunga and with Chiche brought in, things turned around immediately for Brazil, winning 7 consecutive matches fairly convincingly and becoming the first nation to qualify for the World Cup. Well, besides Russia, of course. Brazil look strong in the attack, with the likes of Neymar, Gabriel Jesus, Douglas Costa, Coutinho, Firmino, Willian, a midfield of Casemiro, Fernandinho, Paulinho, and Fred, and their backline is nothing to scoff at either, with Marcelo, Marquinhos, Thiago Silva, Miranda, etc, etc, with the notable absence of Dani Alves. Oh, and they have to choose between Ederson and Alisson in goal. Not a bad choice to have to make. Serbia made easy work of their qualification campaign ahead of the likes of Republic of Ireland and Euro 2016 semi-finalists Wales, losing just once along the way. Somewhat surprisingly, their coach Slavo Muslin was sacked following qualification, as Serbia will be yet another team who will have a different coach at the World Cup finals instead of the one that got them there. Part of the reason as to why Serbia fired Muslin was apparently due to his inability to find a way to utilize Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, so if their new manager can find a way to utilize the mega sought-after Lazio midfielder alongside Nemanja Matic and Luka Milivojevic, damn, that's a pretty strong midfield, considering the seasons all 3 players have had. Also, Alexander Mitrovic is looking strong coming into Russia as well, as he had a great season with Fulham and scored 6 goals in qualifying for the Serbs. Costa Rica had a solid qualification campaign as well, finishing behind Mexico in CONCACAF qualifying and beating the US twice. Sorry, USA fans. In 2014, of course, they were the feel-good story of the tournament, pushing Holland all the way to a shootout in the quarterfinals, which they unfortunately lost thanks to Tim Krul's heroics. Remember when he was brought on in the 120th minute for Jasper Cillessen? Weird. Anyways, so Costa Rica's squad has a lot of repeat customers in this edition of the World Cup, so it's safe to say that they will have an experienced squad who's been there and done that. Keylor Navas is of course the most notable player, along with their captain Brian Ruiz, and their strong center-back pairing of Kendall Waston and Giancarlo Gonzalez. Now in the past they have utilized Joel Campbell as their striker, but during their qualification campaign, Marco Ureña did well for them. However, Ureña's looking touch and go for the tournament, given his facial surgery following a nasty collision up against the Seattle Sounders. So, they could have a few problems in their attack if Ureña isn't available, but it's looking more likely than unlikely. So that's good news for Los Ticos. And rounding out the group is Switzerland, who despite winning 9 matches of their 10 qualifying matches, ended up having to take the playoff route to qualify, beating Northern Ireland 1-0. That was a controversial result, by the way, as the Swiss got through thanks to a penalty for a handball, when the ball had struck the Irishman's shoulder. Yikes. But the Swiss are an extremely well-organized side defensively, with a probable back line of Rodriguez, Schär, Akanji, and Lichtsteiner. Their midfield is decent as well, with Shaqiri, Xhaka, Zuber, and Gemaili of note, and scoring goals, it didn't come too simply for them in their playoff against Northern Ireland, but they weren't completely impudent in the group stage qualifying, and Severovic could do a decent job for them. Regardless, as I said, Vladimir Petkovic has his team really well organized and extremely frustrating to play against. And with that said, I think the Swiss will just manage to squeak their way into a second placed finish right behind Brazil, who will top the group with relative ease. Keyword, relative. This will be a really tight group though, as Serbia, Switzerland, and Costa Rica are all more than capable of defeating each other on any given day. Next up is Group F, and this is another one that's going to be very interesting. Of course, with Germany as the defending champions and the fact that well, they're Germany, they will be the favorites to come out on top of this one. They have the second most amount of appearances at the World Cup with 19 now, so 2 less than Brazil. However, they have actually played 2 more matches than Brazil, which they of course got by beating Brazil in the quarterfinals in 2014, thus moving on to the semis, and of course, winning the finals. Anyways, went off on a bit of a tangent there. Germany won the Confederations Cup relatively easily last summer, all the while sending a team full of youngsters and national team fringe players. That goes a long way to illustrate just how deep the Germany talent pool really is. However, their one question mark positionally could be who will be their number 1 goalkeeper. Manuel Neuer made his return to the national team in pre-tournament friendly against Austria after 8 months off. For me, however, if he's to get the start and to remain the starter throughout the tournament, that's pretty harsh on Ter Stegen, who has proven to be one of the top keepers in the world over the last couple of seasons, if you ask me at least. With Neuer not playing a minute of football since September, it seems unfair to Stegen, but hey, that's just me. Neuer is the captain of the national team after all, so. Also, Germany are light on left backs, but that's me sort of clutching at straws as far as weaknesses go. Oh, and as far as qualifying went, Germany absolutely crushed their pretty easy group, winning every single match, scoring 43 goals and only conceding 4. In fact, in the last 3 World Cups, Germany has been the top scorer. Mexico will do their best to give Germany a real run for their money, as they have quite the talented squad this year. They breezed through the CONCACAF Hex, finishing in first place with 6 wins, 3 draws, and just 1 loss. They also had the best defense, conceding only 7 goals across their 10 qualifiers. In the attack, they look exciting, with Vela and Lozano coming into this tournament in great form. And while Chicharito Hernandez didn't have the best season at West Ham, becoming more of a substitute under Moyes than a starter, and scoring just 8 goals from 28 appearances, he tends to show up for Mexico. Their midfield is looking strong as well, with Hector Herrera, who I dislike as a Benfica fan, but have a ton of respect for. The veteran Guardado will be in the mix, Reyes, and then a strong backline including the likes of Layún, Salcedo, Moreno, etc. Mexico is looking pretty strong, not to mention Memo Ochoa in goal. Sweden, the country that have trash cans for hearts. I'm joking, that was of course in reference to when Juve were eliminated by Real and Buffon said the referee must have a trash can for a heart for ruining his dream. Anyways, explaining jokes, always a good thing. But yes, Sweden of course famously defeated Italy in the European World Cup qualifying playoffs, just needing a single goal to do so. They made it to the playoffs of course by finishing ahead of the Netherlands in their qualification group. Ever since Zlatan retired from the national team, the team have spoken about how they feel much more unified instead of simply being seen as Zlatan and 10 other players. As for the proverbial 10 other players, aka the rest of Sweden, they have some quality in Emil Forsberg, Andrea Granqvist, Victor Claesson, and Victor Lindelof. It's funny, I read a few breakdowns of the Swedish squads, and a lot of media outlets said that Lindelof had a nightmare first season with United, which I think is a massive stretch. Was he incredible? No, but he showed signs of quality, and at a certain point in the season, United were undefeated with him as a starter. And Sweden are going to need him, as they have a poor record at the World Cup as far as defense goes, with just 3 clean sheets from 24 matches. In fact, if anything, Forsberg should perhaps be the player that's critiqued more, as he had a brutal season in comparison to his previous 2. Granted, he did have a few injuries, but still, he failed to reach the levels of his last few seasons. He got 2 goals and 2 assists. That's it. In the Bundesliga, at least. The final team in the group, South Korea. I think it's going to be a pretty rough tournament for this South Korean side that sort of made a mess of their qualifying, but ended up making it anyways. Perhaps saying made a mess is a stretch, doing what the other media outlets did, but they didn't look good at all, and they largely benefited from being in a weak group, finishing just 2 points ahead of Syria and Uzbekistan. Korea had just 4 wins and 15 points, while the former 2 had just 13 points. Not the best quality. In fact, South Korea's manager was sacked before the qualification campaign was up following a 3-2 loss to Qatar. And when they had finally clinched their place in Russia, the team was criticized by media and fans alike at home for celebrating, as they didn't feel that they did enough to be deserving of celebrations. However, in recent friendlies, they have looked a bit better, most notably against Colombia, and with Sonaldo, aka Sung Heung-min, leading a pacey attack, Korea could shock a few of their fellow Group F combatants. In the end though, I don't think Korea will have enough to finish in second, or even third. They'll maybe steal a point or two from one of Sweden or Mexico, but ultimately they'll finish at the bottom of the group, with Sweden in third, Mexico in second, and Germany topping the group. Okay, Group G, and this is a tricky one. Belgium, England, Tunisia, and Panama. Well, this would have been much more tricky before Tunisia lost some key players to injury. But anyways, during their qualification campaign, the Eagles of Carthage went unbeaten, winning 4 and drawing twice in the final group stage, conceding only 4 goals. Granted, they were up against the likes of the Republic of Congo, Libya, and Guinea, so not exactly the top teams out of Africa. Respect to those nations though, of course. Here's some 100% transparency for you. I know almost none of the Tunisian projected starting 11. The one name that stands out to me is Wabi Kazri, who wasn't great during his time with Sunderland, but refound his form when he returned to Rennes this past season. Returned to France through Rennes, scoring 11 and assisting twice in Ligue 1 and the Coupe de la Ligue. Not bad for 24 appearances. He will really have to pick up the slack to fill the hole left by the first choice Tunisian striker, Youssef Moussakni. And he isn't the only injury concern, as defender Ali Magoul could be ruled out, as well as midfielder Mohamed Ben Amour. Panama! They are the other nation making their World Cup debut in Russia, and oh my, what a story as far as their qualifying. Of course, we know the United States failed to qualify, needing just a single point up against the 99th ranked Trinidad and Tobago side that was at the bottom of CONCACAF qualifying. The States lost, and Panama won against Costa Rica, thus leapfrogging the Americans and grabbing the final direct qualification place. Huge. Panama have an interesting team with some major oldies in there like Blas Perez and Jaime Penedo in goal and Roman Torres in defense. He's not that old though, he's 32. Then they have some promising players like Ricardo Avila, who plays for KAA Ghent, well at least with their reserve squad, etc, etc. They have an experienced coach in Hernan Dario Gomez, who has managed both Colombia and Ecuador in World Cups in the past, but went out in the group stages on both occasions. England, captained by Harry Kane, this relatively young-ish English side, commandeered of course by their young coach, Gareth Southgate, will be a very interesting team at the World Cup. Will it be classic boring England, or will the youth and exuberance in their squad make for a deeper run in the tournament? A notable absentee from the World Cup squad is Jack Wilshere, with some people shocked that Joe Hart didn't make it, but for me, come on. He wasn't great for Torino, and he was even worse for West Ham. Why should he deserve to go to the World Cup based on his experience alone? In my opinion, that reasoning for bringing someone along who is not as good now but has experience is only valid when they are a former legend. You know, like if Spain was to bring on Iker Casillas to guide a young David De Gea or something like that in the past. But Joe Hart, I'll pass. Anyways, England went unbeaten in their qualification campaign and only conceded 3 goals along the way. They didn't score a ton, just 1 goal more than Slovakia and Scotland behind them. And I mean, their qualification group, you'd expect them to do well. Recently, they played against fellow World Cup bound opponents, Nigeria, with Captain Kane and Gary Cahill getting in on the action. So that's a good look going into the tournament. However, it's hard to put your finger on what's up with England in major tournaments. Things just don't go right for them. But with a squad packed with young talent that are in decent form, this looks like one of the better England squads that we've seen in a while, at least in my opinion. Their steepest opponent in the group will of course be Belgium. Speaking of notable absentees, Roberto Martinez made the, in my opinion, totally bizarre decision to not take Radja Nainggolan to the World Cup. I mean, the guy didn't even make the preliminary 28-man squad. Nainggolan was always considered part of this Belgian golden generation and has been one of their better players and one of the best midfielders in the Serie A for a few seasons now. So it's definitely a weird call, especially when you add to the fact that Fellaini and Adnan Januzaj made it into the final 28. Ridiculous. Anyways, let's talk about the players that are actually in the team. Belgium has one of the strongest squads going into the tournament, with a wealth of options going forward. Lukaku, Mertens, Hazard, De Bruyne, Carrasco, hell, even Meunier has killed it for Belgium in the attack. Their defense looks decent as well, with Alderweireld back in action, Jan Vertonghen, Vincent Kompany, etc. And their midfield, with the likes of Witsel and Dembele, strong as well. Man, mentioning all those names, Belgium perhaps have one of the most talented squads at this tournament, but they are chronic underachievers, getting bounced from Euro 2016 by Wales and by Argentina in the quarterfinals of the 2014 World Cup. They have largely the same squad from those two tournaments, but a slightly better manager. Maybe that will be the difference for them? Hard to say, because at times they've looked tactically confused, including in the friendly against Portugal this past weekend. But I think they'll be fine, at least as far as the group stages go. I'll do a separate preview video for the round of 16, but yeah, I think Belgium will make it out of this group without a doubt, likely topping it. England will grab second, and Tunisia will just edge Panama for third. And finally, we have a really fun group in Group H, perhaps the most balanced group of all of them. This one could potentially see any of the 4 teams advancing, with perhaps a little bit of less of a chance for Senegal and Japan. Let's start with the former. Senegal won 4 and drew twice in their undefeated qualification campaign, though again, they weren't really up against it that much, competing against the likes of Burkina Faso, Cape Verde Islands, and South Africa. South Africa actually went bottom of the group. Of course, the last time they appeared at the World Cup, Senegal were the talk of the tournament, at early doors at least, beating the defending champions France in the first match of the tournament, and moving on to a quarterfinals exit against Turkey after losing thanks to a golden goal. Remember golden goal? Good times. Kind of. Senegal have a pretty solid squad this tournament, highlighted of course by Sadio Mane, but alongside him in the attack will likely be Sakho, with Niang and Keita Balde as options as well. Not bad. Backing them up in the midfield, they have the likes of Kouyaté and Idrissa Gueye, and their defense looks good as well, led by Koulibaly. Also, their coach, Aliou Cissé, was the captain of the Senegal side from 2002. Cool. Japan, alongside Iran, are probably Asia's best hope of having a team advance to the knockout rounds of Russia 2018, as they topped Group B in Asian qualifying. Or at least, I would have said that, had they not sacked their manager with just 2 months to go before the World Cup tournament. An interesting decision by the Japanese Football Association, even if their qualifying campaign saw them lose to the likes of the UAE in their first match and to Saudi Arabia in the final match. Still, they have an extremely experienced squad with the likes of Hasebe, Keisuke Honda, Nagatomo, Okazaki, etc. And that could prove vital for them. However, I can't look past the turbulence that sacking your manager 2 months before a finals tournament can bring. Even with all of that experience on the pitch, the new manager Akira Nishino will have a tall order to get his team organized and playing to their strengths. Now, Colombia, who had a decent run in the 2014 World Cup led by their star player, James Rodriguez. And it's likely that Rodriguez will be the main man for Colombia once again, as they attempt to do better than their historic best quarterfinals run from 2014, in what was their 6th World Cup. They qualified in 4th place in South America, as things didn't really go smoothly for them in this campaign. They failed to get a single win against Brazil, Uruguay, and Chile, and lost both matches against Argentina. That is worrying for them if they are to advance to the knockout rounds, as they seem to wilt against the big teams, as they did in qualifying and have done so in recent Copa America tournaments, going out against Argentina and Chile in 2015 and 2016 respectively. In March they did beat France in a friendly, but have followed that great result up with 0-0 draws against Australia and Egypt. Not great, but they are friendlies. Take them with a pinch of salt. That said, they still have a very strong squad with the likes of James, Cuadrado, Falcao, Uribe, and now a defensive pairing of Yerry Mina and Davinson Sanchez. Yerry Mina. Poland are coming into this tournament off of a great qualification campaign that saw them top their group ahead of the likes of Denmark and Montenegro. Not the sternest of opponents, but some tricky ones were in there as well, especially away to Romania and Armenia. I said Romania and Armenia, by the way, where there's always room for a slip-up, even when you're speaking. But they won 8 while drawing and losing 1 apiece. However, the loss was a big one, falling to Denmark 4-0 in Copenhagen. Perhaps there is a bit of an over-reliance on Robert Lewandowski as well, as he scored 16 of their 28 goals in qualifying. But thankfully, he's healthy and in decent form, despite his club future being a major question mark going into this tournament. This is Poland's 8th World Cup appearance, having finished in 3rd on 2 previous occasions, back in 74 and 82. Recently, however, they haven't had great World Cup runs, losing 6 of their last 8 matches, and when they're bad, they're really bad. Every time they've lost, they've failed to score. I think it's fair to say that this is one of the most talented Polish sides in a long time, however, and they should be able to make it out of the group stage in 2nd place behind Colombia, with Senegal in 3rd and Japan in 4th. Whew, that's it. All 8 groups previewed, and a cheeky little prediction thrown in there for each one as well. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, or both preview videos if you're a real champion. And if you enjoyed it and you're new around here, then consider subscribing to support the content. I'll have more World Cup videos coming at you before and during the tournament, so be on the lookout for those. Other than that, I hope to see you in the next video. Peace.